everybody to another episode of Marvelous Medicine. Today's topic is building effective clinical teams in medicine, and Dr. Subroto Bhattacharya is going to be speaking on team building as well as how to start and run a practice. Dr. Subroto Bhattacharya is the medical director and a family practitioner at Danvers Family Doctors. He's also a part-time faculty at the Department of Family Medicine in Boston University School of Medicine. He did his MBBS and MS Orthopedics from JIPMER Pondicherry. He's a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, Glasgow, and a fellow of Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh. After moving to the United States, he board certified in family medicine and has been running a family practice for several years. Welcome, Bhatta, and we look forward to listening to you. Today's moderator is well known to all members of Learning General Surgery, Dr. Girijadath Sharma. He's a senior consultant surgeon at Jaipur Golden Hospital, New Delhi. Dr. Sharma did his MS General Surgery from CMC Ludhiana and was also a unit head there. He pioneered trauma surgery in the private sector at the district level in Punjab and surrounding areas. His series called District Surgeons, which he writes on the Learning General Surgery Facebook page, are no less than thrillers, and we all look forward to each episode. He's a DNB trainer and takes special interest to help candidates who had to repeat exams. During the lockdown and even before, he has been a great contributor to the LGS lecture series, and we hope that he will moderate the session and give us the pearls about how to form a team and how to run a private practice. Over to you, Bhatta.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, everybody. This is both an honor and an absolute pleasure because this is like a reunion to me to recognize so many people and faces that I have seen when I was much younger and when they were younger also, and just to see how far we have come in life and what we have learned. And I think a common thing that is for most of us is that we are connected back to JIPMER, most of us, and we are all physicians, so things we have learned along the way to come to this point. So one of the things that is quite dear to my heart is how to get people to work together, how to build a team. Or in other words, all the things that did not teach you in medical school. That could be the other name for this talk. Let me break it down to how I will structure today's 40 minutes or so of the conversation. Obviously, we cannot talk of every form of team building which is there. So a lot of it will be based on my experience and how I got there. So in other words, you could say a lot of quotations from the Journal of Anecdotal Medicine. It is a great journal to quote from, but please remember, it is one person's point of view. Many of you would have had experiences which are different. So we'll try to find a commonality that we can take away. So there are certain points that we can all agree on. So the way I broke this down today is, first, what is my qualification to talk about this? Two, what are the resources that are there for team building, or what could one do to find that? Three, what are there any simple tools that one could use for team building? I don't want to read all of the resources. What are the simple tools that we have? Some types and examples of teams. And from fifth, what can I take away from this to make it better for me in whatever team I'm working on? So I'm hoping that this will be across the board to all people, but mainly so for somebody who has finished undergrad training or is in the middle of postgraduate training or has just completed post-graduation training, because a lot of what we speak about teams will be aimed for that particular group. Let's start with the first point. What are my qualifications to talk about a team? I'll tell you right at the beginning, absolutely nothing. I have zero qualifications. Why so? I am not qualified to tell you what to do in your life, just as none of you are qualified to tell others what to do. So we presume that we have a lot of qualifications to say things to others. In team building, there is not. Yet there is an entire industry out there, consultants who tell you how to come and put things together. And this is, I think, the biggest scam that is there, because unless you know what you want, it's difficult to know how to run a team. How did I get to this point? I never thought that this is a little bit of personal background to where I am today. I never thought that I would be talking about this kind of a subject at all. So having done my orthopedics from Jipmer, I did what a lot of my colleagues did at the time, which is I wandered into the UK. Now, there was a transition point there that I did not recognize. I was in a middle level of a team, which was at the senior resident level, which any of you who have experienced it know. You are in charge of the residents, the house surgeons, the medical students, yet you're answerable to your unit leader and the faculty that is there. And I went from that to the UK, where you restart all over again at the bottom. It is like starting a new job, but you have dropped 2 or 3 rungs down because you have to prove to others who you are and try to climb up the ladder. What the UK did for me was it gave me a time to find myself and figure out there was one thing I did not want to do in life, and that is to be married to a hospital. Because of the structure of how the UK training is, after a while, I started doing a lot of lateral moves, which means I was moving from one job to another, not up, but sideways. Having a great time, doing well, but not actually climbing up the professional ladder. And I realized it's mainly because I don't enjoy working in a hospital. And this is something I did not know about myself. I had an opportunity because of family to move to the US, and I said, let me reinvent myself. This may give me a chance to change direction. And I was very fortunate that I did that. My wife Som continued to be in anesthesia. I branched off into general practice because it gives me a chance not to be in a hospital and to be on my own if needed. I had always thought that, courtesy perhaps because of my background in Jipmer and Jipmer training, I had thought that I could finish my training and join a large group or a hospital based practice. And this is where fate had a different ideas for me. My wife Som came up to Boston to do a pediatric anesthesia fellowship. And because our children were very small at the time, I moved with her for an 18-month period. The distance between Boston and New York is about 250 miles, and it was impossible for me to commute to do that. So we moved over. I found a job, which was an 18-month job. I was teaching in New York Med at the time. I go over to Boston. I go to a district hospital that has a residency that they are shutting down for their own internal politics. And I was a walk-in because it was, I'm already teaching in a residency in a medical school. I know how to start and stop a residency, and I'm not looking for a permanent job. So I started working there, and I fell in love with the faculty that was there. There were two people, Eliza Acker and Fred Rimley. And I thought to myself, these are the kind of people who are like my family. I would hang out with them any time of the day. And the hospital decided that they were not going to continue with the outpatient practice of the family practice department. And these two faculty, Dr. Acker and Dr. Rimley, decided that they were going to turn it into a family practice, private practice. So they asked me, would you help us do that? I had worked part-time in a private practice before, but remember this, I did not do my high school in the United States. I did not know the culture of the country ground up. And that's something that you need for general practice. So I was looking for the support of a hospital-based practice where there's a larger group that you can kind of dilute your inadequacies, if you want to call it in. And I'd never thought that, I would ever run a practice myself. But I told these fellows, you know what, I'm here for 18 months and absolutely help you do that. So I joined up with them. And then fate had its own particular ideas. We decided to do this in January of 2001. Everything was put in place for the transition. I am going to leave in July of 2002 and go to California where my family is. And one of the physicians, Fred Rimley, he was on the United flight that went into the World Trade Center. And so this was not just a loss, it was a traumatic loss. And so Dr. Acker and myself, we look at each other and we say, what the hell are we to do? And the thing I felt more than anything except for anger was guilt. I felt guilty walking away from things again. I had kind of felt guilty walking away from surgery. It was like, all that I had trained for, I had not done here. And I felt the same kind of a feeling again. I feel guilty walking away from a commitment that I've made. So I talked to my wife, and she says, I have fabulous offers from Mass General and from Children's Hospitals. So I'm happy to stay back in Boston. Understand, we have no family, we have no roots or connections to this city. And so I told Dr. Acker, okay, I guess I can stay back and help you to do this. And she said, yeah, I think you better settle down in Boston. It's a long way to commute from California daily. And I'm thinking to myself, I gave up commuting from New York to Boston. I guess I'm going to give up commuting from California also. And that's why I started this. And hold on to that thought, because I'll circle back to it towards the end to say why this was the defining moment for me, which I did not recognize at the time. So I started a practice having a couple of things in my favor. Well, you may not think of it as favors, but later on in life, I realized I knew nothing about running a practice. I had not done anything in business before. I am not very good in finances or planning. The only thing I'm good at is I understand people well. I kind of sort of get people well. And that last thing was what drove me on. So today we are 19 years into running this practice. When we started, the hospital kind of laughed at us and said, you'll probably be in practice for about 2 or 3 years, and then we will have to buy you out. Today, we are seen as one of the luminaries. It's always good to be a luminary. We're seen as one of the luminaries because we've run a successful practice and we are financially stable. But more than that, the patients seem to be happy with who we are. So, what were the things that I learned here, which I wish had been taught to me when I was in my Jipmer days? And the thing I found out is what I did not know was how to run people and be a team. What medical school had taught me was medicine. And I sat and thought for a while, in other subjects, the people who are the toppers in their batch are the ones who seem to be the most successful. Go to an engineering school. The kid who's got the highest mark in computer engineering probably has got a job abroad or is working for a multinational and is climbing up the corporate ladder. Not so in medicine. The brightest kids are not always the ones who are the most successful kids. It seems to be the people who have the most, what would you, the New York term would be chutzpah. They've got the drive, they've got the people skills, and they are able to do it. And that made me stop and think, what is it that we could be teaching at the medical school level to have people understand how to run things? And particularly, since this is a surgical forum, in a surgical gathering, how to do it. If you go to the internet, there are a variety of resources that are available. There are many different formats, and the US is very good for this, of breaking it down into types of character types of different participants in a team, of personality types that are there, and how you want to build a team so one person doesn't overlap with another. If you looked on the internet, the Myers-Briggs personality type for assessing people, the Belbin types of personalities for different teams, there's a lot of resources. The question is that something that's all applicable to us? And I said, I think not. So I sat and I asked myself, what is it about teams in medicine that is different? And what I could come away with is teams in medicine are interesting in that most of them are hierarchical and the training is by apprenticeship. Now, let me give you an example. There are different types of teams that are there. One type is the team that is by a very rigid structural code and obedience. A good example would be an army platoon or a squadron. What are the characteristics of that? You have to be physically present there. You can't be an army cadet remotely. It just does not work. You have to be physically there. There is total obedience. You will follow the commands of your superior, even if it puts you in physical harm. So it's unquestioning obedience. You can't say, well, you told me to march. Let me just think about it. It doesn't work. And three, punctuality and structure are core. So this is a top driven down team. It's very functional, it works, but what it takes away is creativity. You cannot, the platoon fellow cannot tell the sergeant what he thinks how he should conduct an exercise. No, The protocol, the code is written down. Many of you have been in surgical teams which work just like this. You cannot question the consultant. So on the surface, it looks very structured, but I think it becomes very rigid and contained. So what you're paying the price for obedience is a lack of creativity and a lack of growth. The second type of team is the broader, more amorphous team. This has got all kinds. This has got the worker, this has got the backstabber, it has got the one who wants to chat, it has got the one who wants to gossip, this has got the one who wants to push the work onto others, it's got the one who seems to get all the troubles thrown on them, with a leader who may or may not be effective. Lots of corporations, lot of big businesses work in this kind of a way. Smaller businesses, not so much. Here, I think the key is the bigger the number of people, the more the diversity in personality types that you're going to get. That's a given. That's a given. So if you are, say, unit one of a surgical unit, that is one contained team. But if you took the entire surgical team with 3 units, it's a much bigger team and you get much more different personalities because the middle level management, which is the unit team leaders, have their own personalities, surgical interests, and what they do. So you have to choose for yourself, which one do I want to join? You may not have a choice, I understand, in certain levels of your training, but this is something that should be going through your mind. Does my personality fit into this and how does it go? Today, there's a different type of team, and this is the virtual team. Right now, here, we are a team. For 45 minutes, we have agreed to come together as a team to take something away from this, which from, because of my presentation is not much, but that's a side story. But we're all here together for a purpose. After a while, we may dissolve and move away, but for a given time, we are here together. And in this current world of the pandemic and in virtual worlds, a lot of people in the tech industry are doing it already. The team may be scattered all over the world. You don't need to be physically connected to be present. All you need is some kind of a form of communication, which could be a video communication or it could be email or whatever it is. So I looked at all of this and I wondered, this is hard to teach in the medical world. How does one teach all of this? How does one prepare somebody to do this? And I said, there are so many business administration management courses that are out there. They create hospital administrators. They don't create how to run a medical team well. So I thought to myself, what's the difference? What could be done? What could be done? And I broke it down into 2 groups. The differences that are in a medical team and the structure that you need to have. Let's start with the differences. The differences are we have the frontline seats to human misery. Other teams create for emotionally neutral things or for happy events. Let us say, case in example, you are organizing a wedding. You give it to a wedding organizer. The wedding organizer is a team. He puts together, or he or she puts together a team. You're doing it for a celebratory, happy event. So whatever you do has kind of like a cheerleading quality to it. Rah, rah, we're going to have extra garlands. We're going to have a band that's so loud they can hear it 4 blocks away, not just 3. We are going to get the biggest horse that we can. These are all positive things. You have a corporate world. We are going to write a software piece that makes us more money. The guy who's writing the piece may not get all of the money land in his pocket or her pocket, but it's emotionally neutral. You're participating, you do your piece of work at 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whenever software engineers shut down their work, you can walk away from it without feeling emotionally connected to that work. Not so in medicine. We deal with people who are hurting. So sometimes you see the worst of human behavior. To compensate, you may not see the worst of human behavior from the patients. You may see it from your own colleagues and from the persons who are trying to teach you. That is the hardest part to deal with. So in addition to that, there is this quality of apprenticeship. There is somebody who has walked the path before you, who has learned something in a particular style and a bias, who is teaching you what to do, what not to do, how to do it, but more importantly, how to do it their way. And in a team that is built based on obedience, very few people will show you how to do it your way. This is something that you have to learn on your own. So, to get to this point, what is the structure that you can do? And I've broken it down Patanjali style, because it's all dependent on five things. And the way I break it down is, what is your purpose? Who are the participants? What are the resources that you have? What is your safety net or redundancy? And finally, what do you know about yourself? To repeat it again, purpose, participants or members of the group, the resources that you have to yourself or to the group, the layers of safety that you can build for yourself and the group, and knowledge about yourself. Okay, let's break it down to what it is. If you don't do something that has a purpose, it's very difficult to feel enthused about a team. Now, remember, I told you at the start of my personal journey, hold on to that thought, we'll come back to it for a second. Over 19 years, what I found out is I am not very good at keeping commitments to myself. This is just my personality again. So I said, a lot of quotations from the Journal of Anecdotal Medicine, and this is what I discovered about myself. I may not be very good at doing things that I promised to myself. But if I give you my word that I'll do something, I will go to the ends of the earth to keep it. That is just who I am. So this was the thing that I could take away to set up the structure for building forever. I had told Dr. Acker that, we are going to do it in Dr. Remley's memory. So my thing is, I have made a promise to a man who has died a violent death that I will do this in your memory. So that gave me a purpose. It's always like there is a goal and I'm driving to it. So even today, if you go to our practice website, it still says this is a practice which is in the memory of Dr. Remley. Now, each one of us chooses a hill to die on. This is the one that I chose, and for me, it worked. You may have a different purpose. You may have a different, and there is no one purpose that is more noble than another. There is no comparative purpose. You may be in a team primarily for the purpose of financial gain. The first thing to recur is that is not a crime. As long as you recognize that is your purpose, you will choose a team that can deliver that purpose to you. If you don't know your purpose, it's hard to know where to work. You may not be the leader of the team to start with. You may be entering a team, right? As a trainee, you enter a team, then you figure out where else to go and do your work. So you're always looking for a team that you think can deliver the purpose to you. To do that, you need to know who are your group players. You're a soccer player. You have been hired by the club. Mohan Bagan wants for you to play. I don't know if Mohan Bagan still exists, but Mohan Bagan wants you to play. You got to know who are the other fellows in your team. If they got some fellow from East Bengal who doesn't know how to play soccer, you're going to realize, don't give him the ball. That's not going to get us much of anything. So the thing to do is to, once you've got into the team, or even perhaps before you have got into the team, you want to be able to have a look at the people and get a sense of who is it that you're working with. This is more difficult than it seems to be on the surface. How so? Very often, first impressions are wrong. So do not always get into the fact that you look at somebody or you look at a team or you've seen them in one situation and you've immediately figured out that you know how it is. Why do I caution you about it? I'm good with people, I get people, but I'm also impulsive. Sometimes I jump to a conclusion faster than it needs to be, and I've always regretted those moments afterwards. So how does one then figure out who the participants are? The best way to do it is look for some metrics that do not define personality. How does this team material? Like today, uh, because of Google reviews and things, there is a crowdsourcing or there's a way to figure out what the reputation of a group is. I'm not saying it's the most perfect way to do it, but it's one of the methods. You ask people, you ask friends, you look at the output of things. For a surgical team, you may want to look at output. You may want to look at complication rates. You may want to look at patient satisfactions. You may want to look at staff turnover. And again, this has to be balanced with your purpose. Let us say you want to join a team in Chennai because you have to live in Chennai. I'm just giving it as an example. And you find, Hospital X, which has this team, and you go there and you find out that everything looks good except for these two consultants that people, they're not, one of them yells and screams and shouts in the OR, you know, why was I not given this instrument? Whoever sterilized this box, he's always the fault finder. You tell yourself, I take criticism badly. I don't like to be yelled at, but I still want to live in Chennai and this is a good pay. You have to balance out then what you want, but never compromise one for the other. You may want to figure out, is it possible to join it so that I have the least amount of exposure to this particular consultant, or can I learn certain skills how to avoid getting wound up by this fellow? And that is the area where you grow and change, so that if you are a participant of a team, you've modified yourself to be effective in the team. Let us say you are the consultant who screams and shouts, and you've just been thrown out of a practice in Gurgaon and moved to Chennai because it is a good 800 miles away. You want to ask yourself, can I make a fresh start here with making changes that would alter what did not go right at another place? So each of these levels of kind of introspection gives you a chance to grow, both for participating in a team as well as leading a team. Now, the third part of it is this extra layer of safety or redundancy. What do I mean by that? Medicine is one of the things that and some teams in medicine are kind of they get into trouble because of this. Everything depends on the one person, either how he or she runs it, or a particular skill that they have, and there is no backup. What do I mean by that? You have Dr. So and so, he's an eminent cardiologist, he's the one who does the cardiac cats. Nobody else has been trained like him. If he breaks an ankle and is at home, everything shuts down because you don't have anybody he trusts enough to do it the way he would like you to do. So you are in a particular team where you want to develop some skills, but the person who is in charge does not give you that opportunity to do it. There is no level of safety that is built because there is no protocol where others are trained to do it. And I say the most successful way to do a team is you have protocols and practices in place that if you were not there, the team would still run. This is what I have been very particular about in how I set up this practice in 19 years. All our protocols and workflow is written down. There is a policy and procedure manual that is written down, so you can deviate from it. You can, but not too much. And this is what has really worked for us. So we reopened the practice on the 1st of June when the 1st of June 2020, when the first wave of the COVID pandemic had reportedly died down in the US. And I wrote down a protocol saying that we will see only one patient in the office at the time, and this person will be in a room and will not move. There will be no movement in the common areas. I took some criticism for that. Dr. B, how could you do that? We will lose revenue. We will not be effective. I says, no, the virus has got no wings or legs. The virus moves only when people move. So yet we have to see people. So we put on our protective gear. But once the person comes to the room, they stay there till everything. So the appointment is bought to them, the tests are bought to them, everything, and then they get the hell out of there. You know what? From the 1st of June, and maybe it is just sheer dumb luck, from the 1st of June till now, we have been able to keep open without one of the staff falling ill. Even if I'm not present in the office, that protocol, they don't have to call me to figure out how to do this because it's written out as a protocol. And that structure is what I mean by safety, particularly in medicine, because you cannot afford to make a mistake. We're all human. Mistakes do happen. But it's in medicine, it is hard to make a mistake because the outcomes may be fatal, which is why you want to always check back in your team to see how do I set certain standards that even if I'm not there, I'm not directly supervising, there is somebody to watch, or there's a structure in place that things go safely. And that brings us to the final part of it, which is the interesting part of it. Do you know enough about yourself to know what you want or how to be in a team? And this is an answer that over the last 20 years I found out for my own self. I did not know myself. Now, realize again, what I am today is not what I was 20 years back, which is not what I was 30 years back. So I have to account that this, yes, there is a period of growth, there is a period of change. The thing that is interesting is I also did not realize that growth is of two types, positive and negative. So I have to sit down and think, what are the good things that I have learned, balanced with what are the bad habits that I have learned? And then I sat and made a kind of like a bulleted list of it, and I came up with certain things which was quite interesting. One I learned was the best way to run a team is to be incredibly fair. What does that mean? You have no favorites. Well, that's right away, that's bullshit. It sounds so good to say you have no favorites. Let me tell you, it's bullshit. All these kind of things that they say, there is no I in team. It is meaningless words. Of course, there's no I in team. If you put an I in team, you do not know how to spell. It's as simple as that. It doesn't tell you anything more than that. So we are all human. We like certain people who are like us, or for whatever reason, and we dislike certain people. So the idea of fairness is not that you take away like or dislike. The idea of fairness is for a given situation, for a given occurrence, you treat the people the same whether you like them or you do not like them. It is a very hard thing to do. You have to show that when it comes to the professional bits of it, you are like a robot. You're like the Terminator. I must heal. You're like the medical Terminator. Terminator said, I must kill. This one is, I must heal. So people then get a sense that personalities may not matter as much because every team has got people. There are the troublemakers who are constantly conflagrating things. They are the brown nosers who want to do things to please you so that you will be nice to them. They are the backstabbers who want to talk bad about others. That personality bit doesn't matter as long as you can show them, doesn't matter if there is an issue that comes to you, you will get a response and not a reaction, no matter how good, how um, dangerous, or how critical the issue is. The second thing I learned, and this is because, and I am not being sexist, let me tell you right at the beginning, but I run a team of 10 women. I am the only guy at this moment because my other physician went to Africa for 6 months, and that was 9 years ago, and he has still not returned. He's a missionary physician, so it leaves me as the only guy in a group of 10 women. I learned the wonderful power of the words, uh-huh. Do not get excited and respond. When people come and tell me, Dr. B, did you know that so and so did this and this and this? And I give a 5-second pause and I go, uh-huh. What this does is it de-escalates the atmosphere that is built. When something is good or bad, what you've done is you've raised up the emotional level of the situation, and it just deserves a response back immediately. If you're the kind of person who answers every WhatsApp message back straight away, the good thing to do would be to learn how not to do it. Put the phone down, take a deep breath, wait for 5 minutes in response. You have just learned the power of uh-huh. In that 5 minutes, the other person may write back 15 things, which will now give a better picture of what was the initial thing that started it off. So I realized that if I do not show a anxiety, anger, liking, or fear, the response that I get back from the other person, particularly in terms of the information that I may gather, is much, much better. If you are the autocratic kind of surgeon who leads a team, you may find that you will get the best out of your residents and house surgeons if they feel that they can talk to you, because if they say something that they think is disquieting, They are going to hear aha instead of ayo kadavale, I don't know why you did that. The third thing that I found out was understand the power of familiarity. There's a wonderful English saying, familiarity breeds contempt. I would say that. I think familiarity breeds tolerance and liking for dysfunction. Be very cautious about them. You know, you work with somebody who is ugly for 5 years, and the sixth year they actually start appearing quite attractive. Why? You've seen nothing but this for 5 years. You get used to it. And the mind is so capable of adjusting that you have just lowered your standards a little bit, or you've changed your, I shouldn't say lowered, because that gives a sense that beauty is something desirable. And certainly not. It is meant to be more of a laughable anecdote, but you have changed your standards. So the longer you are with a team, and the success of a team is if you don't have too much turnover. The success of a team that you have built, particularly surgical branch, is that if you've got people whose style, whose proficiency, whose behavior, whose emotional content you understand, then they're predictable. It's like having a wingman that you don't have to watch for. But the longer somebody works for you, the easier it is to tolerate their dysfunction. The second thing that happens with familiarity is the longer somebody works for you, the greater it is for them to take advantage or vice versa. Do not fall into that trap. You want to have a friendship with somebody in your team. It's perfectly okay to do it outside of the professional setting. You know, your senior resident says, "Sir, can we go out for a cup of coffee?" Let's get the work done first. We'll go for the cup of coffee afterwards. That cup of coffee is nothing more than a cup of coffee. Once we are done, we return back tomorrow to work. So when we work, we work. Afterwards, that's perfectly okay. Because it's the same thing. Once you allow that familiarity to cross the boundary of professionalism, people will take what we perceive as advantage. So if you give your cell phone number out to somebody, don't be surprised if they send you a forwarded WhatsApp message at 10 o'clock at night. Because when you gave that number, what the presumption was is, I am familiar enough with you to share this with you. So you now have the familiarity to impose on my time. Why is this so important in the medical world? When you deal with misery all day long, you need some time for yourself to decompress. At the end of the day, you want to come back and find yourself some time for your own to be able to think, what happened this whole day? What did I do the whole day? What was the worth of it? Is there any way, if I was given a chance to do this day all over again, I could have made some changes? You can't do that if people are forever imposing on your time. So even though you could be a friendly, empathetic, good listening leader of a team, do not allow the boundaries of familiarity to be crossed to be an effective team member. And finally, the final thing of all things in team, no human being is perfect, including ourselves. Never, never underestimate the power of kindness. In our practice, we give people second chances. People who are the imperfect people who are scatterbrained, people who got fired from another job because they have ADD, they can't focus, they get things wrong. If you are kind to somebody who is on the process of trying to improve themselves, you will be repaid so much by a desire for them to do well as loyalty that it is unbelievable. And that brings me to the final piece of this, which is loyalty. Now, I have been loyal to a cause because I choose to be. That is not a virtue. That is not a virtue at all. Many times, and particularly in the medical world, and more so in the surgical world, loyalty is seen as a defining virtue. You have to be loyal to your boss and do well. No, this is a gig economy. It's a gig world. People are constantly moving. You may give somebody a break because you think, they deserve it and you're doing them a favor. And after working with you for 6 months, they may move on to a better paying job or something else. That you should not be disappointed by that. Everybody is looking after yourself. You too are looking after yourself. But while you are leading a team, you are doing it so that everybody gets the best out of it. A lawyer that I know who is a good friend told me something which really resonated with me. And that was, do you want to win the argument or do you want a resolution? You decide for yourself. You know, in leading a team, there are many things that go which do not go the way they actually you had planned for, or you have to recalibrate, or the outcome may not be exactly what you desire. Was it resolution? Did your purpose move forward? It may not have moved to the goal that you actually wanted. Did it move forward adequately is the question that you want to ask. And that pretty much sums up about what I wanted to talk to you about, my lessons and journeys learned. So to recap on that, I think what I would like, or what I think people may want to do is to figure out their own five structured things for both participating in a team and leading a team. Do you and the team have a purpose? Do you know who are the people in the team and your participants and how you're going to interact with them? Do you know what the resources are available to you and to your team? Well, again, we didn't touch a lot about the resources, so I'll take a second to speak about them. The resources means what are the obligations that you have in life, and what do you think the resources the team has? If you join a practice that is thriving and you think that it's stable, that gives a sense of stability, but if you have other commitments and you can't do it, you have to make a decision. Which way do you want to go? Fourthly, do you have a structure of adequately built sound protocols so that if you were not to be there, or should something happen to you or to another member of the team can still run carefully? And finally, and that's the key of it, do you know yourself enough? Do you give time to yourself to figure out who you are? Do you reevaluate yourself adequately to see that you are making progress in the direction that you're going? And do you have the strength, the will, and the good humor not to be defeated by setbacks? Thank you, guys. Thank you for putting up with me and listening to my little harangue.
Thanks, Patta. Dr. Vidya Sharma is logged in. Sir, could you please turn on your mic and video, sir?
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I have been from the very beginning listening to, and it's very interesting that we have never met each other, but probably in India, I have been trained under the similar circumstances by American missionary in CMC Ludhiana. And I would you like me to share my thought process or?
Yes, sir, please do.
Yeah. So Dr. Eggleston was a Presbyterian church missionary who came to Ludhiana in CMC and spent around 37 years. I had the privilege of working around 8 years with him. And every morning, besides surgery, he imbibed all these skills which Dr. Subroto has said. So if I am trying to give the Indian perspective, more so at a district level, where the team building is part of surgeon's responsibility or the clinician who leads the team. Whereas in metros, we have professionally trained administrators who do the job. So if I have to share some of my thought processes, with all humility, I have employees who have worked 37 years with me, still 5 of them. We have half a dozen people who have worked 25 years with me. And the question which I want to tell my younger friends is, do I give them an abnormal salary? The answer is no. So what do I do that people don't leave me? First important thing I would like to say, get genuinely interested in your team members. We need to look after not only the financial part, the social part, the respectability of the employees. Every employee is treated like part of the family, so that it is an employee ownership relationship. Then the communication skills with the staff members. Somebody who has come late, somebody who's, I'll just give an example, somebody who is normally coming in time. So in a particular day when she was needed, she came late. I would only ask, Jocelyn, I hope all is well at home. I have not asked, why are you late? The case got delayed. We had so much problems. You had the keys of the Almira, right? For a good worker, if somebody has a problem, one or the second time breach in discipline, accept the person in totality. None of us is perfect. The President of America, the Roosevelt, was also, his decisions were correct only 55% of the times. So we are common people, and we are all likely to have error in our decision. We should, that's next point I want to say, we should look from the other person's viewpoint. When the time of cutting is 7:30, I should not assume I am traveling in my D segment car and the nurse is traveling in a local bus to reach there in time. So once in a while, if somebody is late, who is normally an important contributor of the team, should be accepted with a smile. Then lead by example. Whatever I want others to do, first the leader should also exhibit. What I have found, every 6 months I evaluate all my team members, from my neck surgeon, my anesthesiologist, my other team members, doctors, and even the senior paramedics. Are all of us growing? When I say growing, for a young surgeon, it is a growth in his technicality. For the anesthesiologist, it is the growth in her package. For the paramedics, it is the growth in their learning as well as their finances. So we need to look into the total growth of all the employees. Then I believe in an open door policy. Even my sweeper has the right to come to me and talk to me that the air conditioner is room number 9 is making noise. The relatives of bed number 5 were talking outside that if something goes wrong, we will bash up the doors and window panes. Because such things, only a sweeper will over-listen, right? And the single important thing, there is no feedback to feedback. If somebody has come and given me a feedback, all feedbacks should be taken with a smile. Some of them will lead to a decision useful to the institution. Some will go to the dustbin, but the person who is bringing the feedback should never feel that his feedback has gone to the dustbin. That's what Dr. Ji said. I am saying we are probably talking on the similar wavelength. Then in a district level practice, I also believe there should be a quick reward to a paramedic, to a young doctor who has done a good job. And the reward is not only verbal appreciation, sharing a coffee with him, but the reward always means an envelope containing some Mahatma Gandhi pictures, without which no appreciation. In North India, there's a common saying, khali pet bhajan nahi hota. For bhajan, you need some prasad. So if you want people to be loyal to you, not only I should be changing my car, they should also be changing their scooter, right? So then about an employee or a team member, we should look at a totality. As I said, nobody is perfect. So if somebody is overall good to the organization, should be retained at all cost. Now, turnover. I always have thought my employees are of two types in the team: the disposable and non-disposable. We get so many young recruits, say 6 to 8 every year, who come in. Out of them, when I find one who is good, he qualifies into a long-term employee. The others, I would say, okay, you may not get that much increment here. I will get you a job. And very often I tell my people, if anybody, believe me, this I'm saying when I was 29 and now it is 65. I tell my team periodically, anybody who thinks he or she is getting a better job and there is a vacancy around, tell me, I will get you a better job. This is my confidence that the chances of getting a better job are remote. If a good employee has once left me, considering there's a better job, and he or she is not getting adjusted into a new job, wants to come back, my ego is smaller than the utility of the organization and the team. With a smile, we'll take back. And there are some definite difficulties of working in tier 2 or tier 3, which I would like to highlight for youngsters. Well, the financial growth in a smaller town is much higher, quicker, and faster. But it also reaches a saturation if you are not constantly upgrading your skills. Now, to attract people in a small town, especially the other specialists, is not easy. People are willing to slog in a metro at half the salary, then twice the salary they will not accept a bit far off. The resources are limited. Some of the doctors, even in a small town, would like to work under a Lalaji, but not under a senior clinician. There, the ego of clinicians is hurt. But then, if we offer a growth, we can retain people. Let me share you a very, very interesting solution, which maybe some of the other friends can replicate. I tried hard last year. I could not engage a reasonable surgeon to partner my finances and responsibility. So, after a lot of thought process, I involved my young anesthesiologist and gave her, besides the anesthesia fee, the surgical fee also shared, and the project worked well. It is for 1.5 years. A young anesthesiologist is also taking care of all the perioperative and preoperative workup. So in a smaller town, all what is logistically, scientifically right may have to be substituted depending upon the local, things which are available. And as already discussed, people who backstab, people who create problem, I would follow the Ludhiana policy. There should be zero competition within the unit. We have competition from surrounding hospitals, from other practitioners, but within the unit, I believe either I will mend the man or I will end the man. I mean, if I think somebody is constantly creating trouble for me, and then the ending is also very pleasant, I will always, people whom I have ended also, they also periodically come and meet me every now and then. I have never terminated a man without a job in hand. I have always terminated people with the next job in their pocket and maybe 2-3 months salary. So the guy who goes out should also be happy. So these are few things we can further discuss. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Geetanjali has started many institutions. So we'd like your input on how do you go about building a team. Till now we were talking mainly about clinical team, but a little bit more than a clinical team, both admin and clinical. How do you go about that?
Actually, Bhatta, I was blown away by your talk. I mean, I didn't think that he was this erudite and so knowledgeable, and there's nothing I can add to this. I mean, I was really so happy because many you might have thought I didn't join in, but I joined in right from the beginning because someone has sort of done something to my tab and it's coming as IT department. That's to all wrong spelling. But whatever. The thing is, I think teams to a large extent, no, it's very difficult to generalize also, Vidya and the others too, because it depends a lot on the kind of place people are in. They carry a lot of the cultural reflections of the place you are there. So it's sort of, I think, varies from place to place. Generally, the principles are the same, but I will agree with Bhatta on one thing. When we were students, we were never trained on things like leadership or communication skills and these kind of things. We always had to see how people were doing it and sort of imbibe. But now it's not there. In every medical school in India, from the very first year, students are taught on team building, leadership, and they have different ways in which it is being taught. Very innovative methods. It's not that somebody is coming and taking a lecture. Extremely innovative methods. So it is being taught and it is done now. Whether it is having an impact on these kids who are going through our medical schools, that is one thing to see. There are also very big differences between running teams comprising mainly of medicals or healthcare professionals and also leading teams which has other elements. Like in AIIMS Bhubaneswar, we have security, we have housekeeping, we have various kinds of technicians, and so it's a sort of a mix. And sometimes I see that people tend to look at even how leading these teams in a very different way. So I'm sorry, I can't tell. I'm not a very good. I mean, I don't know much about this, except that a lot of it is, I would say, instinct, and we sort of find our way. And of course, nowadays there are a lot of there's a lot of information in the form of books and for us to learn from other people. So in that sense, I don't feel very much alone or as if I can't see what's happening, because nowadays people are willing to share their experiences. Like Professor Sharma was just saying, Bhatta was talking. So we have these opportunities where we can listen to what other people are undergoing and listen to their them giving some information for us to learn from. So things have changed a lot now. So it was not like that those days, because those days the senior most person, if you look at in JIPMER, the senior most person became the director, not because he wanted to be the director, because the senior most person had to become the director, whether he wanted to lead the institution or not. It's not like that now. Now we can apply. If you want to become a director, you can apply for the position. So things have changed a lot in India too. And there's the learning curve is not that difficult, I would say, for someone who is leading a team, because there are various ways from where you can learn. That's all, but I thoroughly enjoyed your talk. Thank you very much for it.
So, Bhatta, Ravi has a question for you. What is your advice to leaders on how to recruit and build a team and mentor them without competing with them?
Yeah, I saw that question on the chat, and that's a wonderful question, Ravi. And I think the closest answer that I can give that would make for any sense is it depends on who you are, what kind of a leader you can be. I will use a running analogy for that, since that's what I seem to have devoted the last years of my life to doing. If you are a competitive runner who runs chasing the person in front of you down, then you will recruit other people who are competitive, because that is who will relate to you, and that's the kind of mentor that you will be. So more like an issue of birds of a feather flock together kind of things. That said, it's not always possible that you will get that. You may walk into a team, or you may be asked to lead a team or asked to participate in a team where they are all comers. And I think the best way for effective mentorship there is to break it down into segments. Our one-time chair, the one-time White House chief who lasted only 2 days in the Trump administration, is a guy called Anthony Scaramucci. He is now on the talk shows doing wonderful things. Not a very bright man, but he came on CNN one time and he had words of wisdom. He asked this rhetorical question: how do you eat an elephant? And I'm wondering, where is he going with this? And his answer was, one bite at a time. And I said, this man is a philosopher. He's deep, deep, deep. Yeah. If it's a large team with various different types of personalities and you can't get along with them, you attack it one group at a time that you can. How do you recruit somebody who is to come into your team? I think what you do, and what has worked for me because of the people that we have hired and recruited, and again, I understand this is very anecdotal, is we did this by setting an expectation. We said right up front, this is your job description, but this is the practice description. Even though you may be doing this piece of the job, this is the expectations of a practice. When I came to the West, I did not quite understand what a mission statement was. To me, it was like, why do we need a mission statement? We are all on the mission together. The auto is going to Patanikade. What does it matter that whether it's announced or not? Jump on the thing and go. We don't need a mission statement. I realized what this mission statement was. The mission statement is the expectation of where you want the team to be. So if you lay that out, I think you get the kind of persons that you would want to recruit. Will you be disappointed? Absolutely. Like anything else, there is a bell curve. You will find the ones on the left side who do not meet your expectations. You'll find a vast majority in the middle who meet your expectations. And then you'll find the outliers, people who exceed your expectations. You hired them, you looked at their resume, you looked at their resume virtues, you looked at their education, and you said, may rise to this level. And they surprise you. They get into the job and they rise much higher, and they've got skills that you never anticipated, because in a 15-minute, half an hour interview, you couldn't figure that out. It's very difficult to encapsulate an entire life into 30 minutes while you're wearing a suit at the same time. So this is going to be a thing that goes on, I think it comes and goes. And then to branch off a little bit, to get into kind of the philosophical realm of things, the more I get along in life, I realize, I think some people are sent your way because that's how it was meant to happen. There are people you will encounter who will surprise you with a variety of things, good, indifferent, and bad. And I sometimes wonder, how the hell did this person come to work for me, both for good and for bad? And that again is like going into metrics that cannot be proven or said. I think it's a personal philosophy thing. But I think to kind of get back to the question that you really asked and to answer it as most authentically as I can is, I don't let personalities get to me. When I finish work and I come home, I have left work behind. I have left it out behind. I lace on my running shoes. I hit the road. I am in my own headspace. And I have found that has been the most helpful thing for my growth. To quote my favoritist band, Jethro Tull, it was a wonderful song in it. Guy wrote this lyrics. I had waited for time to change her. The only change that came was over me. So I realize it's not the people I'm recruiting or the people I'm working with who are growing. It's myself that is growing too. And the biggest thing has been not to get affected by things that happen. It's a little harder said than done, but that's probably the most authentic answer that I could have for you.
Dr.
Thanks,
Vidya
Bhatta.
Shetty is
Sorry.
head of anesthesia at Fortis Mulund, and what struck me when I met his team members is just the sheer joy they seem to share while working and the camaraderie among the team. So, Dr. Vijay, would you like to share your secret? Unmute yourself and turn your camera on.
Oh, thank you, madam, for asking me to speak on this. I just come back from a walk, so I'm not a runner, Dr. Bhattacharya, but I really enjoyed your talk and lot of takeaways for me and other. It is justify some of the things that I do in my team. Thank you so much for the speak and Dr. Sharma too for the wonderful uh, bits of tips that he gave me. I think I'll carry them ahead. I think, madam, from my side, you know the corporate structure, how we build it and how we run a thing. Uh, like some of the things that I have going in my team, I would say is that we have people who've been working with me for quite some time now. That is number one, very important, and it also tells us that people like working with each other. And if that is there, I think 50% of the job is done. And anesthesia, being anesthesia, our team of anesthetists, we get to face challenges because of what the surgeon brings in. And as long as there is a developing surgical facility and we get newer and newer things to work out, that excitement itself, I think, keeps us going. The real challenges come is how to adjust with people who are very good, excellent in their work, but they don't get along with people. I think that is one challenge that I always have to face, and that is what I would like to ask the experts too. That if there are anything that I think we can put in, or what is their experience in very high-end performers, but they don't get along with the rest of the team. If there are any uh, pearls of wisdom that I can, or maybe the rest of the people can also implement. So,
Patta, would you like to take that?
Yes, I can answer to that to some extent, and I will tell you the reason why. Um, One of the things that I figured out was both a plus and a minus for me is that over the years, and this goes back right to my time in Jipmer itself, the one thing that I'm good at is this art of verbal jihadism. I want to get the last word in. I am good at a verbal battle. I am good at an argument. I know how to twist the knife into the wound and I can say things, hurtful things in a funny kind of a way. This is both a blessing and a curse. It really is. The way to work with people who have gifts and talents, but have a personality that is like sandpaper is to look at them only for their gifts and talents. You are not married to them. You're not going out for dinner with them. You're not going to have a cup of coffee with them. So forget the rest of the thing. And do not be in any desire or haste to correct them. One of the things that is the worst thing in life is not to be told you are bad. It is what is called silent resentment. And someone comes and does things, you show disapproval in unspoken ways. People realize they are not valued or wanted. They carry that with them. So the next time they come and tell you something, even when it's good or bad, just your body language, you look at the ceiling like that, they think, oh, this guy is not interested. So do not show silent disapproval either. So, kind of the answer to your question is it's difficult. It depends on your personality, how you interact. But like I said when I was speaking, the thing that I learned was that wonderful power of somebody comes and complains, oh, I can't work with that anesthesiologist. He's the craziest fellow ever. He wanted to do this, he wanted to do that, and things. What happened today? Well, we were having a case, and did the case come out all right? Yeah, but this fellow is this and this and this, and you go and say, uh-huh. So the person is waiting. All right, you said, uh-huh. What next? And you say, let me do this. Let me just go and look into it. I got a couple of things to finish. Let me go look into this, and I'll get back to you. What you've done is you've given yourself a little piece of time to figure it out. You've diffused that immediate powder cake that was going to happen. But remember, you've set up a commitment. You've told this person, I will get back to you. So what you really need to do so that people feel that you're fair and you're able to handle things is to go back and tell, look, I looked into this. I think this is a personality issue, not a competence issue. And so we got to figure out how to make it work. So you're ready to address the problem as is. You're ready to compartmentalize the thing. You're showing the person I am not picking one side of the other. I'm not saying that this personality good, that personality bad. we'll try to move it on. And you're not lecturing them most of the times about what to change. You know how I learned about this? This was actually learned by me on the streets of Chennai. And it is what is called the lungi fight. What do I mean by that? One time I was traveling back from Bangalore. I got off the train at Chennai, and two guys were having an argument on the platform. And they were lifting up their lungis in threatening gesture. Dai vada, yennada, yennada saman, then all kinds of curses flying. And then people jumped in. Guys, don't fight. This is a railway platform. Walked away. Lungis dropped. Took 5 steps. Turned back, hitched up the lungi because he wanted the last word in. Die. He starts again. That doesn't help any matter. Either you're going to fight to the finish, or once you've started walking away, you walk away. So the whole thing with leadership and team building is, do not be ambiguous. Do not set up an expectation and contradict yourself straight away. If you've told somebody, no, this is how it is, and the person says, well, that sounds unreasonable to me, it may, but that's how it is. I'm not compromising on that. So once that structure is kind of clear cut, it is easier to do. But that is also an autocratic way of doing it. If you want to do it a better kind of a way, or at least your personality is such, we'll look into it, we'll find a resolution. You're giving people the time to speak, you're giving people the time to diffuse, and then you are responding and not reacting. So difficult situations. It is really like herding cats. It's a difficult job to get all the cats into the same room all at the same time. And it is also stressful because it takes a toll on yourself. So I think the big thing is, find some time for yourself. Make sure you don't respond emotionally to things, and kind of hold back on an immediate judgment. And that, I think, helps. I hope that answers the question as best as I can.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Vidya, if possible, can I ask another?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just needed to understand one more thing. As a leader, does it always happen that you put your personal progress, like, say, I want to learn a couple of skills and I want to move ahead for my own personal, because I like doing that and taking up a challenge. But taking care of a team also involves, well, a lot of time goes in that. So does it necessarily mean that I have to stifle my growth to make sure that the team is left intact or it grows? I mean, do I put my team's requirements always in the front? Has it happened to you, and what have you done about
Absolutely. This happens to everybody. Uh, Conflict, both personal and professional in life, happens all the time. This is what I have always wanted. When Christmas comes around, I always write a letter to Santa Claus saying, I need 12 extra hours in the day and nobody else can have it because I need to get all the damn work done. So conflict and shortage of times happens all the time. You ask a very good question. How much are you willing to compromise for the team, and what is the worth of doing that? Is that how I am reading the thing? That, I think, is personal choice. What do I do personally? Uh, I let my growth run parallel to what the team does. So when I go into work at Danvers Family Doctors and run this group, which I have for the last 19 years, I deal with the issues, personal, private, professional, as is. But when I come home, I have my own things that I am doing, and they run parallel. One of the things that I've found helps is I don't share much of that with the people at work. Not because I do not like them, but private is best kept private, because otherwise it is not. The people at my work are not my therapists. I do not need to share that kind of stuff with them. If somebody if somebody impinges in and wants to talk to me about things, I'm willing to listen, but I tell them also, I'm listening because you wanted me to listen, not because I choose to be your therapist. I personally, because I'm the leader of the team, do not share much unless I'm asked. If someone were to ask me directly, hey, how is your mother doing? What's going on? I'll give them the answer exactly as it is. Yeah, mom's having a little bit of a moment. She had another tiny stroke. I don't compromise on that and not tell them the truth. But I don't bring my personal life into that. It's difficult. It is difficult to set the boundaries. It's difficult not to take work home. It's difficult not to let personal work come into the professional thing. So when I'm at work, I do not look at social media or I do not look at my phone. It's so easy and tempting to do that simply because I need some downtime. No, instead I go and drink a cup of coffee. But then again, please realize this is a personal style. I'm telling you what I do. It may not necessarily be the same for everybody.
Dr. Ilanga, would you like to say something?
Just a clarification. I would like to hear more on that question which was asked by Dr. Vijay Shetty. Dr. Subroto, I think the question was that how do you manage your personal progress? Like, suppose I'm a surgeon X wants to do some kind of surgery and he's taking care of a team, and there is another team member who wants to do the same kind of surgery or procedure. And how do they match the personal aspiration with the aspirations of the team or a team member? I think that was the question which was asked. Would you like to answer that?
Absolutely. I have some observations on it. Been many years since I have personally been doing any surgery, but I kind of understand the atmosphere which is there with it. And it's not just in surgery, it's pretty much in all walks of life. Um, it's an interesting kind of situation because what is unspoken in this is the level or the ferocity and the nature of the competition. You're specializing in a particular procedural event, you're trying to grow. The other person is also trying to do this. Now, how is this person doing it? Is it a fair competition? Is it somebody who is doing it in their own particular time and a space? Are these the people who would sabotage your work, who would go out of the way to destroy your team to do it? Because now we are dealing with a whole different thing. We're not dealing with procedural skill. We are dealing with somebody who is a sabotager. Is this somebody who tries to go ahead by stamping on your stuff? They badmouth you or the talk behind your back, so it's not direct technical sabotaging, but it's still enough soft damage that is there. So there are different aspects to these things. What I have found for myself, and then again, I will always kind of preempt it by saying that this is just a personal philosophical point of view. I am very internally driven. I have very little opinion or care about what others think of me. This is just how I am made. When I made the change from surgery to move away and go into general practice, a lot of people berated me, including my peer group from JIPMER, saying, we can get you a surgical residency in the US. Why are you not going for this? You've got the technical skills. And what it was for me was I'm driven. I know what I want. I don't want to be connected to a hospital, and that's why I chose to go that direction. So for me, I get driven with the projects that I pick up. Do I respond? Do I get angry? Do I get upset? All of that happens. All of that happens. But a couple of things that are there in the situation that you describe. The biggest thing to figure out is, I would think, how much energy are you going to spend containing this threat compared to how much energy are you going to spend in your own growth? And the short breakup of the equation is, if you are spending a whole lot of energy containing the threat and constantly looking over your shoulder, it is best time to look at the classifieds and find another job and move on. It's very hard to change hearts and minds. People who have destructive behaviors towards others continue to have that forever, and it's just a bad relationship. Again, that's my personal point of view.
Dr. Murli, would you like to say something, sir? Dr. Murli, could you unmute yourself?
Vidya, Dr. Girija Sharma wanted to respond to Ilango's question.
No, it was a pleasure listening to Bhatta. It brought back memories of JIPMER. I had a wonderful time listening to him. Nothing more than. Thanks, Bhatta.
Dr. Girjadar Sharma, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Could you turn your camera on, sir? Yeah. Sir, you're muted, sir. Kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Okay. In response to Dr. Lingo's question, there are, this kind of conflict carries on in every unit. And having this conflict is a rule, not a philosophy. Till the boss on the top, why this conflict is there? The younger guy, if you don't mind, this happens more often in GI. All people want to do pancreas, and the boss keeps them posted to the colorectal, which nobody wants to do. Am I right? So the point which I want to raise, the boss has insecurity somewhere in his mind. And if this boy starts doing pancreas, what will I do? This is exactly what in my student days, the professor of gynecology used to say, if my lecturer is going to do hysterectomy, what will I do? Because that was the end point. I think if we encourage our youngsters and permit him to do safely whatever he can, the team members stay for a longer time, provided the boss himself is confident. The growth of the team is the responsibility of the boss. That's what I would say. Second point, I would say that tackling with the difficult, high-performing characters, most of them are surgeons. All of them have more ego. It is pleasant. I have been selling the philosophy of what Dr. Bhatta has been saying. I would say interesting. When such an event comes, speak in your minds. Interesting, slowly, and do not react. My office whiteboard carries a big bold letters, capital D, capital R. That is a reminder to me every day that I am not supposed to spontaneously react. For the youngsters who are being, troubled by the egoistic high performance, I always tell them, in free India, everybody has the right to grow. Let a Murak grow into Mahamurak and into a Mahamurkha Nand. One day, an equally egoistic guy will tackle him and pull him down. So you be pleasant. Don't carry the stress home. Thank you. That's what I would say.
Dr. Vijay Grover, did you want to say something?
Just a moment. I'll get my. Yeah. See, a team leader is not an easy job. 100%. Second thing is that a team is not a team if you don't allow people to grow. It will falter and fall at your face, flat at your face. You have to make people progress. There is no doubt about it. And you cannot always feel that I will be left behind or I will be outrun by the juniors who are right now supporting me. It is never the senior people can never be a competitor for the junior people. They're always going to be the advisors, legends, that a role model to follow. So you should not look at yourself as a competitor with the younger colleagues. As a team leader, you will have to make them grow, then only they will stay with you. I don't think any skill that you have, especially as a surgeon, would go away because a junior person has developed a newer skill. So ultimately, you have to. I personally look at myself. I was a member of a cardiac surgical team. Now heading in the department is a different job. I'm doing much less surgery as compared to what I was doing 5 years back. But that doesn't mean I have stopped operating or I'm operating. My operating skills have come down, or I'm not able to. I'm faltering more. It's not the same. You have to be able to be around, help, guide the junior colleagues, and let them grow. Sometimes you have to reduce your amount of surgery, but that amounts to a better teamwork, especially in a field like cardiac surgery.
So, Dr. Vijay, though I'm no expert, my point would be, I don't think we should completely sacrifice our growth for the sake of the team, because then that will cause, what should I say? resentment, and then once we start resenting, I don't think we can be leading a team well. So we have to keep ourselves happy to keep rest of our team happy. So now I was answering Dr. Vidya Shetty.
I got that, madam. Thank you so much.
Yes, Radhakrishna, you've not said anything all along.
So it's so nice to listen to Dr. Subroto and remembering his good old days, and also Dr. Vidya Sharma, this rustic his knowledge and logic. We interacted so much over the years, and he's my guru. And I'll touch upon one very delicate topic, which is not very nice to talk about, and I'll ask both Dr. Subroto and Dr. Vidya Sharma. Is in India, especially in the corporate sector, this group practice, the biggest bugbear is finance, economy. And I understand that in the United States, there's a formula for everything, and there'll be some finance people who will be dictating this. In India, it's very, very difficult, and this is where the whole problem comes up. How do you deal with finances? How much each person is paid on the basis of their expertise, seniority, or what? I want both of you to comment on that. Not an easy thing to say.
What I can say, Patta, is that here the system is on its structure a little different from India, but the driving motivator is the same. It is what people value is their worth in terms of what they get for salary and money and such like. The piece of it that I don't know whether you're asking this question, but the piece of it which is interesting in the US is also what the insurance companies dictate in terms of how much they will pay you. So it's both the inflow of cash and the outflow of cash. Over the last 20 years, what I've found out is the expectation of people and the expectation of what rewards they should get for performance are changing. When I started in medicine and when I joined teams, understand I was a lot younger and I was not so mature and I had not personally dealt with the financial cash flow. But it was kind of a given that you would stick to somebody for a while, even if the pay was lower, because you expected that you would be treated well or you'd be taught well or you liked the team. And I think the reason that happened was information was not available at our fingertips. Today, in the new gig economy, not only does your employee know how much you're paying them, they also know how much you're paying the other employee. You can look this up immediately. There is resources that one can get to. So what I have learned is not to be disappointed by somebody who feels that their level of financial remuneration is not matching up to their things. These are people who are difficult to satisfy. They will move on. They do move on. We like Dr. Sharma was saying, in my practice, we have retention and longevity. These are people that have chosen to be, but again, the financial package that they're getting is more towards the generous side. I am not paying them at the top of the level, which a hospital could pay, but it is more towards the generous side. I think people who will stay with you value the entire package. They value who you are as a leader. They value how much you pay them. But most of all, they value, if they have had that experience, what happens to them in their hour of need. We had our nurse in charge who developed an epidydoma and a brain tumor and needed surgery. Her son had a brain tumor. We have had one colleague we lost to pancreatic cancer. We have had illnesses. We have had injuries amongst the families of the people who work for me. This colleague of mine who died of a pancreatic cancer in 2015, she was like my right hand. She would anticipate everything that I knew. My day ran faster and better because of her. So when she fell ill, I continued to pay her. So her husband came to me and said, you must be making a mistake because, I see that there is an automatic paycheck that is going in. maybe you want to look at your payroll and change that. And I said, no, I am not making a mistake. And he said, but she's not working. Why are you paying her? And I said, I'm paying her to stay alive. That is work enough for me. And she never forgot that. She never forgot that. And 5 years down the line, when I meet with the husband for pretty much all of the holidays and for her anniversary, he reminds me of that. You always did that. So people take away what they value. What is difficult is the people who are the troublemakers. They get into the practice, they figure out how much they're paying, they go and gossip with the neighbors, they find out how much you're paying somebody else. They come to you, sir, you're giving that fellow more, I got more skills, I told you already, I got it, why are you not paying me? Those people are difficult to handle. So what I tend to do is I call them, and I know it's a little bit of a harsh word to use, I call them the toxic team members. These are people who always bring a sense of negativity into the team. There's nothing positive about them. It's always a complaint. So I go more into the aha mode and I say, you know what? This is not something for public discussion. I don't think we should talk about your problems in front of others, because they will bring it up at the lunch hour or in other meetings where it's absolutely inappropriate. I shut them down. This is not the venue. Come talk to me afterwards. We will do. I have learned not to get upset or to be angry at them. Why? If somebody leaves, you do not want the person leaving to be an angry team member. They will spend all their energy trying to hurt you if they can. By today, it's very easy to do that. They can badmouth you on the internet. They can badmouth your reputation. All kinds of things can happen. So I always say parting should be nice and civil, but for somebody who is really toxic, Patta, get rid of them early. That's the fastest way to do it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have worked around 3 years in corporate sector, and what formula I have found very useful is, number one, I give an abnormal respect to my team members. I always tell them in a lighter way that your in-laws will also not give you that much respect which I give. In front of the crowd, if some sick patient has got well, in front of all the relatives, I said, your son has got well because of Arindam Mukherjee's effort, who was my first lieutenant. I will praise him so much in front of the public that he will be flabbergasted. Second point is, we started with 60-40 financial distribution. So I told him, every year you go up by 2%, I come down by 2%. So that 5 years from now, we will be both 50-50. Maybe that was different because my financial growth in my younger days has been very high. So that 2% changed the ratio of 4% every year. Right? And then he was allowed to do whatever surgery he wanted. If he took 2 hours more on a case, the chief of anesthesia will continue to poke me that please get it hurried up, you take over. I said, okay, he is the future of the institution. So I stood with him. So these are 3 things: respectability, higher exposure to higher technology, and financial growth. I mean, you have to look after, but it was an agreement that as you are going up on money, you are supposed to work much more than me. I mean, I will be only doing the planning part. Most of the executions have to be done by him, and he did it.
Now, is there a formula? Is there a financial formula followed by most units, or everybody does this?
No. Everybody has his own. Most units, the senior doesn't. In the parallel second unit, there is a guy working for 10 years at 40%. He didn't get 0.5% raise. So that it is. I think it is a level when you can call this much is enough for me. Somebody who can draw the line that this is enough for me, then that, gives the happiness to all parties.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You should say that, Dr. Sharma. So, you know, when we lost this colleague of mine to pancreatic cancer, I got very depressed. I did not recognize it at the time. So what I did is I went back to running. And so now I run with one of my favorite band, Grateful Dead's verses on my shirt with a dedication. And one of the lyrics of a song, Ripple, is very interesting. And it says, reach out your hand if your cup is empty. If your cup is full, may it be filled again. And I think that is a philosophy that works quite well for most things in life. Let everybody have enough. Ravi may relate to this. I was writing a little piece on social media about saying your prayers before a meal, of saying grace or the parashchanam, as we say in Sanskrit. And the whole thing of the bhojana mantra is let there be food for everybody. I don't need to eat of your plate to satisfy my hunger. And by the same count, let not the other man look at my plate either. I think this is a mindset, and I think it can be translated. You can set the tone that this is what I expect. As a leader, you can set that tone. Not everybody will follow it. There are some people who will push others on the buffet. They want to get to the line first. You cannot change them. But I think the biggest thing is, let there be food for everybody. Just my observation on this.
If anyone has any comment or question, please go ahead. Otherwise, we'll be winding up in a few minutes.
Will Lalit Shekhar say something?
Yeah, why me? But leaders are born. I thought you can't make them.
We want to see you, Lalit.
1 second. I'm just putting the makeup on. 1 second. It was. I came for vintage Bhatta actually, and the vintage is only getting better. The wine is only getting better. Leaders are born. Can you make them? Circumstances will bring out the leadership in you. But I think the human being, yeah. So and we've all picked up from the leaders we have seen, but we've set by example by our seniors. I think if you pick it up as you go along, those will be my only comment. I've always wanted to be a follower because it's easy. It's easy to follow, isn't it? My son says I am a sheep anyway. I follow. But even amongst the sheep, there will be some other sheep following you and thinking you're the leader. I suppose that's where it is. I'm an anesthetist. I have to follow the surgeon. I'll mute myself.
Dr. Sharma, any closing comments?
Bhatta wants to say something.
I was going to say, there is nothing wrong with following, If you're running down a freeway and there's an oncoming car, better not to be the fellow in the front. Better to follow somebody else. So, we learn from other people's successes. We also learn from other people's mistakes, particularly in the medical world and particularly in surgery. Sometimes it is good to be a follower, not to be the first to do something. So, you're not doing anything wrong there, Lalit.
Dr. Sharma, any closing comments?
Yeah, I would say this very productive meeting, a lot of interaction. And I would also like to remind all other younger colleagues that I have been running a 3 months fellowship course on art of communication and leadership for young surgeons in Delhi. We have already trained half a dozen people through LGS. So all youngsters who are interested can spend 3 months and learn a lot of things on hand.
Thank you, Bhatta, and thank you, Dr. Sharma, for joining in. And thank you, all of you, for sparing the time on a weekday. We'll meet you again next Thursday with yet another episode of Marvelous Medicine. Till then, take care and stay safe. Good night.